Evening. I wanted to hop on here and just say hello, happy Saturday, and wish those of you who are running the Brooklyn Half Marathon or Marathon tomorrow a very good luck. Special shout out to Magdalena, Ranulf, Orcan, Kelly, and Tanmay, 5 athletes that I personally know that are running either the Brooklyn Half Marathon tomorrow or the full marathon. You guys are going to do great. I'm going to be at Zone 1, which is right by McCarran Park, to start out with and try to catch all of you guys running tomorrow. It's going to be an amazing time, and it's our home turf. So if you're from the BK, let's rep it and represent and have the best time out there. Most importantly, I know a lot of you are going for PRs, and I think that's amazing. I have a runner who's going for Boston. I have a runner who's using this as a training run for the 521 RBC half by New York Roadrunners. And, you know, all goals are important, but just know that, Alex, I see you're on here. Welcome. But just running, enjoying it, staying injury free, and just running your race and trusting your training, not doing anything new on race day, is a really, really good way to kind of just make it a great overall day and just enjoy it. Oh my gosh. So I wanted to come on here and address some of the questions. I actually got a lot of engagement to the polls I posted 2 days ago, 3 days ago, and yesterday, and they all have to do with marathon training. Because for those of you that have been following me on here, first of all, I want to really thank you for your participation in my polls, but also what these do, these questions help me better address your problems so I can better help you and do the best I can to tap into the resources that I have to get answers for you. You know, I'm still learning right here with you. There's no I in team, and that, you know, there is a truth to cliches like that. So whether it's a question regarding running mechanics, which I've been personally working on, or if it's in terms of, you know, a running formal gait analysis, prehab, you know, is a resource I tap into because they're DPTs and they are licensed to do running gait analysis. And that, doing all of that and getting that information better helps me help you guys as runners. Also, you know, just sharing is caring, and, you know, it's always important. My coach, Jason Karp, actually taught me this way back when he first started coaching me. It's always good to remain a student of your own profession, and that is very true. We're always all learning here, and yeah, I just think that there's just so many great things and takeaways from these polls. So I'm going to get right to it and kind of give you my feedback and rationale as to why I asked these, because I think it could really be beneficial. And guys, feel free to ask questions and engage on here, because that's, you know, I would love to hear just more from you guys. And yeah, why not? So, highest weekly mileage for a marathon buildup. The number one most prevalent answer I got was 70 miles a week. Now, there's no specific one right mileage that, you know, you should be hitting. So what this means in terms of mileage buildup, and what I'm pretty sure that, you know, some of the marathoners on here and coaches that answer that question were referring to, was the number of miles in 1 week during, you know, your peak weeks before your taper, before your marathon, your A race. So 70 miles is a lot. A week, it's a lot. I would not recommend that for a first-time marathoner, because there is no reason to go that high necessarily, especially if your fitness hasn't allowed you, or you just haven't been running that many miles ever before in your life. However, if you are a runner and you are someone who has been running, you know, high mileage for your previous marathon buildups, you've done several structured marathon buildups from 6 to 8 months, let's just say, and your highest mileage has been around 65, 70, yes, I'd say that's a safe way to go. But also to take into consideration how much of that mileage is quality workouts and quality sessions. So there's this whole 80-20 rule, and that's a really great rule of thumb, especially if you're following a run training program. However, I kind of have something against these programs, and I'm sure I'm not alone on here, because they're not personalized to meet you where you're at in your training. Meaning, you could pick up a 6-month program that is meant to break a sub 4-hour marathon, let's say, and you might not be in a state of fitness where you're even ready to begin that. So, just really, I'm recapping everything for you here, kind of, in a very condensed way, but making sure you are in a state of fitness where you're able to even begin a 4-hour or sub 4-hour training plan, let's say, for example. Making sure you have the time to commit to your training and all of the workouts. Making sure that the workouts are structured in a way that's going to progress you to get to your goals. So let's just say sub 4-hour marathon, okay? You need to hold under a 9:09 minute per mile pace for 26.2 miles. Now, a really great way to train your body to get there is working your threshold, which is the highest pace that you could hold aerobically before tapping into your anaerobic fitness. So when you go anaerobic, your quads begin to burn, lactic acid is building up while you're running. It's going to hurt, and that's going to actually not give you a return on your investment or defeat the purpose of those threshold workouts. And those threshold workouts are meant to build your stamina and really help you hold that hard pace for about 50 minutes, depending on the runner you are, maybe an hour. Roughly like a little more than a 10K distance, 6.2 miles, a little less than 13.1. So doing those key workouts, progressively in your training is really important. Now, if you're running 70 miles a week and you want to follow that 80-20 rule, that's fine. But, you might be someone who has a great aerobic base, and meaning like you don't really need more easy miles. You need to work your threshold a little more, and so you might have 3 workouts a week where you're running maybe 6 miles, pushing the pace, sandwiched by easy miles, doing that twice a week, and then maybe doing mile repeats on the track to work your threshold, but giving your body a little recovery between those miles to help speed up your recovery overall when you go to those tempo workouts, and just to help you get more fit while you're training for that marathon. So yes, highest weekly mileage, 70 miles a week. I know I just touched on a lot of topics there, but that's a really, there's a lot of things that could change that, and it really depends on where your fitness is at and how you're divvying up your workouts within that, and your conversational pace runs, or easier effort runs, I want to say. Okay, so marathon build up, longer than 6 months. I got a large percentage of answers that said no, that most of you did not train for over 6 months for a marathon. Now, that's okay. A lot of, I actually got some direct messages saying, hey, it was my first marathon, I didn't know any better. And that's not, 6 months is not wrong. I was just curious. I think that there is a benefit to training for longer than 6 months, maybe having a pre-marathon building phase, or even a strength phase, which I actually did and experimented on myself this past summer. But I usually recommend to all of my runners that are training for a marathon, even if that means starting with training for a half, it's still, it's still as a part of your marathon training if that's your A race. Anything from a year out, and I don't really this is why it's very personalized, because it depends on what your goal is. So for example, if you come to a coach, if you came to me and you said, hey, I want to run a marathon this year, and that's your number one race, you could be building up the whole year for that race. But when you want to get to that competitive specific training, I think it should be anywhere from literally 8 weeks to not 8 weeks, 8 months to 4 months out from your goal race. So that, well, two major reasons. You could avoid injuries. Number one, being injured is not fun. And guess what? Once you hurt something, you cannot take it back. And, you know, thanks to Prehab on here, I saw them after I got injured. And that was on me, unfortunately. 3 years, plus back, and I had to relearn how to run properly and learn how to strengthen my body, eliminate asymmetries, and I'm still constantly learning and working on myself and helping the runners that I guide to their goals do so as well. So it really depends on your goals, and I think that, you know, running or training for over 6 months could only benefit you. So avoiding injuries and, you know, just not building up too soon and going into overreaching mode or overtraining, simply put. Cool. So 3, I asked how many of you did over 5 20+ mile runs in your marathon build? The majority of you said you didn't, which is fine. Again, you know, this is depending on where you are as a runner. I think that the more marathons you do, the more long runs that you do to simulate how long you're going to be on your feet on race day, depending on your goal, is going to help you run your best race. So let's use the sub 4 hour model, for example. You really stop getting a return on your investment in your training when you're on your feet for over 3 hours, around there, because things like your running form gets jeopardized, running mechanics get jeopardized, you know, you get tired, and that's okay. But the more that you have those long runs, that doesn't mean adding more weekly volume to your training. It just means having more long runs leading into the taper period, which is, I recommend 2 or 3 weeks out from your goal race, your marathon. So for a sub 4 hour marathon, if you have 5, 21+ mile runs, and you've done several marathons before, this is going to help you understand your body, to understand what it's like to be on your feet for the majority of that 4 hour period. Of course, some of these miles should be at marathon goal pace and some should be a little faster, but that's all contingent on your fitness and your training and how you're working with your coach and how you're training around your busy work lifestyle, hectic needs and whatnot. So I do think that 20+ miles over 5 of them could be beneficial to a certain type of runner, given that your running efficiency, your running form is intact, you are running properly and setting yourself up for success by doing so, and you're not just stumbling over your feet for an hour, let's say, because you're just trying to get the job done. That's kind of not beneficial at that point. So I hope that was helpful in covering that. Now, the next question, pacing strategy. I asked, do you have a pacing strategy that allows you to negative split a marathon? The majority of you guys said no. And that I was a little surprised at. There was a few coaches, and I appreciate all of the answers, but so negative splitting is finishing the first half slower, or I should say finishing the second half faster than the first half. So running the second 13.1 faster than the first. Now, a really good way to do that is to start out very conservatively. So say you're going for that sub 4 hour marathon. Magdalena, who's on here, who's running her first marathon tomorrow. This goes for you, girl. Staying conservative, holding maybe a 9-10 pace for the first half marathon, and then assessing how you feel, checking in with yourself, keeping yourself honest, and saying, should I push the pace and pick it up a little bit? Or should I hold the pace and just keep it consistent until let me reassess in another 5K or so? I think that'll only be beneficial because then you're only setting yourself up for a successful negative split if you're consistently pacing throughout the first half, throughout the majority of the second half, and then picking it up maybe the last 5K by just a couple of seconds a mile. Nothing new on race day. And all these things should be practice in your training. Take note. And yes, you should go to sleep. soon. Magdalena. Okay, next question. Have you ever negative split? The majority of people on here said no. I am assuming that is because you haven't practiced that in training and haven't had a strategy to do so. It's really important to work with a coach, accountability buddy, find a training program, find credible resources, ask questions, and don't just ask one person. There are so many great, knowledgeable DPTs, coaches, running specialists, athletes, like elite. But I would tap into, more the coaches that you are going for similar goals for, that have had success stories coaching athletes that have similar goals as you, if that makes sense. And sorry if that doesn't. I just kind of woke up from a nap a little while ago. But I think it does. So yes, 2 more questions. Do you have time to practice running technique drills? Okay, so the majority of questions on here I got were no. Now, I would love to help all of you guys with your running technique and running mechanics. I'm actually going to be in Chicago speaking at the Run Show USA on stage on June 5th at 10:15 a.m. And so if any of you guys are in Chicago, I get a free ticket to anyone that I want to bring in as my guest using the code ALLI, ALLI in all caps. I'll share it in the story in the show notes right after this. But there's going to be so many different speakers. I'm definitely the underdog on stage. I don't know how I got so lucky. But I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak there with brands such as Koros, Garmin, Feet Fleet, Asics. The list goes on. So many brands sponsoring the show at the Des Convention Center. Carl Lewis is the keynote speaker. He's an 9-10 Olympian, held the 100-meter record before Usain Bolt and still holds the world's record in the long jump. So, when I say I'm the underdog and I'm lucky to be on stage, I mean that, and I'm grateful. But if you guys are going to be in town, I'm speaking about running technique 101, and I'd love for you guys to attend. So, if you're in Chicago, let me know. I'm happy to send you on direct message you my code. Otherwise, you can just grab it from the show notes after this. Running technique. I'm going to be talking about it more there and be sharing that more as time goes on into the summer. The last question, do you include any training outside of your specific running training and strength training in your marathon build-up program? The majority of answers I got on here was yes. Now, I want to make 2 comments. One, that could be a really, really dangerous thing if you're doing too many other things like cross-training on top of marathon-specific training. Even though I could do HIIT all day, and I love HIIT like a lot of you guys do. But 2, it could also be really beneficial because balance is a thing. And when you're training for a marathon, if some of those things include like going out to dinner, going to live shows, like music, doing whatever activities, hiking, traveling, seeing mom and dad, whatever that is, yes, those are great things to do in addition to strength training and running specific training. But you see where those 2 things are very different there. To do more like physically might just be running yourself into the ground, like literally, and then breaking. And we don't want you to get injured. I'm sure any other coach would say the same thing or something similar. So yes, just be careful with what you're doing. If it's not in your training program and you're really not sure what to do, just ask. You could ask me. There's so many different great Facebook forums. There's so many great run coaches on here. And yes, just always ask if you're unsure. Yes, always ask the question. So I really hope that you guys enjoy these polls, and I'm going to be asking more questions because it's kind of like my own way of doing market research with you guys and seeing what you need the most and where, where the majority of you guys are saying yes to, in terms of marathon specific training questions, as I devise more strategies and plans and different ways to help you enhance your running technique and help you run a faster marathon. So I hope all of you are enjoying your Saturday night. You're relaxing. If you're partying, please be safe. And for those of you running the Brooklyn Half Marathon or Marathon tomorrow, I will see you 7 a.m. or probably earlier than that. I'll be in Zone 1 at McCarran Park, and I cannot wait to see you there. Again, to all of you on here, good luck. You're going to crush it. Have fun. And special shout out to Magdalena, Orcan, Tanmay, Kelly, and Ranulf, some of the athletes I personally know and I'm working with. And yes, happy Saturday, and I'm really excited to see some awesome races tomorrow. If any of you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. And yes, and I do want to answer one question from Anthony. Should I be running endurance over speed training while preparing for a marathon? I want to say you need to do them in different blocks, Anthony. You can't focus on speed endurance while you're working on your endurance and your stamina. So, for example, and real quick for everyone on here, you can't focus on speed and endurance at the same time because one is going to sabotage the other. So if you're working on speed, you should probably take back the volume of mileage that you're doing so that you could have the energy and you could actually properly work your muscle fibers, your type 2A muscle fibers, to work that speed, and probably include strength training on top of that while working also on running mechanics. When you're working on endurance, you're not so much working on speed endurance via 200s, 300s, intervals that you could keep as anaerobic, not using oxygen, in other words, as possible. And you're not, when you're working on your endurance, you shouldn't be doing that much speed work. So strides are a great way to, keep in a little neuromuscular fitness and keep your feet turning over quickly and keep you kind of on your toes during your easier runs. But speed specifically should be worked in a different training block than endurance. I hope that answers your question. And there's a way to do that, and it's called block periodization. But there's many different periodization models that could be great for, different types of runners. So yes, I love the questions. That was a really good one. But for real now, I'm going to let you guys go. I'm going to go. We're all going to enjoy our night. Happy Saturday. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you guys soon. Good luck tomorrow. See you at 7 a.m. if you're running. And yeah, ciao.